Okay, this is the flipped classroom tutorial on how to do mole conversions. Unfortunately, I'm not in class today to help you learn this, but I think if I walk you through this using the video here, you should be fine as understanding how to do the conversions. Once you get the concept, you will see that it's quite simple to do. Okay, when you do mole conversions, they're no different than when you do any other conversions. So for example, if you're converting quarts to gallons, minutes to seconds, days to hours, you're already doing those types of conversions. The mole conversions are the same thing, except we're using different units. Okay? The process that we will use to do the conversions is called dimensional analysis. You may also hear me call it the factor label method. So if you see it written or heard, the factor label method, it's the same thing as the dimensional analysis method. In the method dimensional analysis, we will use a structured method to ensure that you always get the correct answer. So if you follow the procedure for the dimensional analysis, you should always get the correct answer with the correct units, unless you make a small calculator error by punching in the wrong number or something. Okay, so let's see what the dimensional analysis procedure is, and we're going to go through this on the next couple of slides too. We're always going to look at our problem to determine what you are given. This is almost always going to be a measurement. In other words, a measurement has a value in a unit. Then you're going to write that given information down with the units and make it a fraction by putting that information over 1. Then you're going to determine your desired or wanted units. What unit are you trying to convert to? That's the question you're going to ask. Make another fraction next to the given /1 fraction, placing the units that you want as the numerator and the units that you're given as the denominator. In other words, the units that you want to convert from are going to be in the denominator. The units that you want to convert to are going to be in the numerator. Then you fill in the appropriate numbers or the conversion values in the second fraction. Remember, the values must be equal in size. So for example, if you're going to have to convert from quarts to gallons, you need 4 quarts for every 1 gallon. 100 pennies equals $1, 52 weeks equals a year, etc., etc. Once you do that, you're going to cancel the appropriate units and do the correct math. Let's see how this works on the next page. Okay, so when we do chemistry, we do everything with moles, right? I told you that during mole day. Now, remember, 1 mole of material is equal to 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd particles. That's Avogadro's number. And when we talk about particles, we talk about atoms and molecules and formula units. Now, we don't know what a formula unit is, and we're not going to worry about that today. But today, we're just going to worry about atoms and molecules. 1 mole of material also equals its molar mass in grams. So it's the same volume, it's just a different unit, or the same amount of material, it's just a different unit. So when we look at conversion factors, when we do our calculations, the conversion factors that you will see when we do our calculations are listed here. Remember, the 1 here is the ratio of this to this in size or magnitude. 1 mole is equal in size or magnitude to the molar mass of a material in grams. 1 molar mass in grams is equal to 1 mole. We can write them either way as far as conversion factor because they're all equal in size. The same with my molar mass, my mole in particles down here, right? These are all equal to each other. 1, which is the ratio of this magnitude to this, is equal to this, right? Okay, so now we're going to use those in our conversion factors for our next set of problems. Okay, so let's try some mole to mass conversions. So the question today is, how many moles are there in 67.0 grams of silicon, right? So let's do the first thing. Let's circle the given amount with the units. What are we given? What do we know for a fact? So let's circle that. So we're going to circle 67 grams of silicon. Why we know that? Because we know that is because that's the only measurement that we're giving in our problem statement, right? Now we're going to underline how many things we're going to need, what we're trying to convert to. So let's do that now. So it says how many moles. So moles is what we're trying to convert to. That's what we're going to desire, right? Now we're going to set up our equation. Now we're going to go back and say, when we go back and say, okay, the first thing we do based on our steps is step 1, determine what we're given, and then take that number and place it as a fraction over 1. So that's what we've done right here, right? And then the second step is we have to make our conversion fraction, because we're going to want to convert from something to something, right? And then we're going to put that right next to it. And this is called the picket fence thing that you can see. So it arranges everything together. Now, whatever we have as units here, right here, this is my unit of grams, those units have to be here. So whatever we want, those units go here. So those are the moles. Okay? These units here must match. So we're going to use these units. This must match this. They need to match. Okay? Then you're just going to fill in the appropriate numbers, right? So grams to moles. So when we think grams, we're going to think molar mass. So we put up that here. So here's my molar mass for silicon. We look that up on our periodic table. And then we look up, we say that 1 mole equals that. This is what we're trying to find. This is what we know is the conversion factor between moles and grams. And then we just do the math, right? Now what's nice about it is if you set it up right, the units will cancel. So my grams cancels here, my grams cancels here, and the only unit I'm left with is moles. Okay? So therefore you should do that. Remember, the key thing is that this unit here has to match this unit down here. If they don't, then your conversion factor is going to be wrong. So we're going from grams to moles, and we need a grams to moles conversion factor. Okay, so let's try another one. This time we're going to go from moles back to grams, right? So in this case, what are we given? Again, circle the amount we're given. We're given this. We're given the 1.85 moles of silver, right? And we have to make sure we have the units, right? And then what are we trying to convert to? We're trying to convert to grams. Okay, so those are the 2 units that I'm converting to. So those tell me right now which conversion factor I need. I need a moles to grams conversion factor, and that's the molar mass conversion factor. Okay, so now we set up our equation, right? And we said we put the number that we're given here and then put it over 1. And then the units that we're trying to find grams, they go here. Okay? Now, we have to have a grams to mole conversion. Why? Because here I have listed moles, and I need moles here. So it kind of tells you which conversion factor you need. And remember, these must match as far as units. The numbers won't match, but the units will match. So the units match. Okay? If you don't have the units to match, then you can't do the cancellation later on. All right? So we've set up our equation. Now we're just going to do the math. And we see that we get 1.96 grams of silver. And remember, because we're doing that now, we can cancel the moles here with the moles here. And the only thing we're left with on the top is grams. All right? So again, set up like a picket fence. Put your information that you know right here first. Just put it over 1. Create another part of the picket fence. Put the unit that you want, just not the number yet, the unit that you want on the top, the unit you're going from on the bottom, then fill in the appropriate values for this. I can let you know that anytime you see the word mole, you're going to put the number 1 in front of it. All right, let's try another one, a couple more with the different units now. Okay, so instead of going from grams to moles and moles to grams, this time we're going to go from moles to particles and particles to moles. Everything you just learned or did in the other one is going to be exactly the same as far as the procedure, except when we use our conversion unit, now we need to use 1 mole equals 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd particles in our calculations. So everything else is the same process, same ways of setting it up, except in our conversion unit, when we see the word particles, we're going to have to use 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. So now instead of doing the mole to mass and mass to mole, we're going to be mole to particle and particle to mole. So we do everything exactly the same. So the first thing you want to do is circle the given amount. So remember, it's got to be a number in a unit, and so we have that there. And that gets placed here, and we put that over 1. Okay? Now, when we look at what we're going to underline, the desired unit, this is what we're trying to find. So this is particles. We're trying to find how many particles. So that unit, by definition, has to go on the top of your next fraction, or next part of your picket fence. Okay? Now, what you need to put on the bottom is moles, because moles here has to equal moles here. The unit, not the number, just the unit again. Okay? So now that you have particles over moles, you just fill in the correct correct numbers for that conversion. Anytime you see the word particle, you're going to write 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. Okay? So we do that, we fill that in, and then 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd over 1 mole of silver. Now we just do the math, and then we do the math is we multiply everything on the top, put that over part, and then we multiply everything on the bottom, the denominator, and we divide the top number that we get with the bottom number that we get. Okay, and so when we do that, we should get this answer. Okay, so here's our last example problem, and I'll do one more on the back of this just to show you how I can do it without anything. So, how many moles is 8.06 times 10 to the 23 particles of silver? So again, what are we given? Let's circle that first. This is the thing we're given. We're given 8.06 particles of silver. Okay? So again, we put that as our first in the numerator of our first part of the picket fence, our first fraction. And then we put it over 1. So we make it a fraction, put it over 1. Now, what are we trying to find? We're trying to find moles. Oops, sorry, wrong color. We're trying to find moles. Right? So we're going to, when we look for moles, we're going to put that unit right here. Not the number, just the unit so far. All right, now we have to fill in the rest of the conversion factor. Again, since we have particles here, we write particles here. And we know that 1 mole of particles is equal to 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. So we fill in this number here. Sorry about that. We fill in this number here. 6.023 over 1 mole of silver. Now our math is just complete. Now in this time we're going to multiply the top, 8.06 times 10 to the 23rd times 1, and then divide that number by 1 times 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And if you got it right, you should get this number. Now you also can say this. When you look at your answer, the number of moles is always going to be the smallest value, whether you're doing gram conversions or particle conversions. So if you get a number here that's much larger than you started with, then you've done something wrong. You flipped this here. If you've got a number that looks reasonable, remember, 1 mole has this many particles. So if I have a little bit more than that, I should get a little bit more than 1 mole. Right? So make sure your answer matches on what you think should be the answer. So take a guess of what it should be first. I look at this number here, 8.06 times 10 to the 23rd. I say, well, that's a little bit larger than 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. I should have at least have a more than 1 mole, right? I shouldn't have a lot more than 1 mole because it's not that much bigger. But so if I get here about 1.3, that looks about right. If I got here like 10 to the 46 moles, that doesn't look right. All right, so we're going to do one more. This time I'm going to give you a problem. We're going to do it from scratch. Okay, so here's our problem. And so what we're going to do is we're going to first do all the steps so you can just see how I do it instead of all pre-filled out. So the first thing I'm going to do is circle my things that I know. I know this. So we're going to make that my first part of my fraction. That's atoms of boron, so B. And we're going to put that over 1. Okay. Now we have to make our picket fence, so we're going to do that, and we're going to put a little thing here and a little thing here. And for our next picket fence, we need to figure out what are we converting to. So that's the unit on the top. So we're converting to moles. Right? How many moles, right? So we want that. So that number, that value goes here. Right? So that value goes here, sorry. Moles. And then, what are we converting from? We're converting from atoms. So we need to write atoms on the bottom. So let's do that on the bottom. Okay. And we know now that we've got there's our conversion. We're going from moles to atoms. So every time you see the word atom, you're going to write 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And then that equals how many moles? 1. So we're done, right? Because we can now cancel the units because we know that these units are the same. So we're going to cancel this and cancel this. The only unit we're left with is moles. And then we do that. Our answer is 1.5 moles of boron. All right. So there you have it. I did it from start to finish on this one, and then you could do it on the other ones. So just make sure you circle what you're given. Take that value and put it over 1. Okay. The next thing you need to do is find out what you're converting to. That unit is the top of your next fraction. The unit that you're converting from is on the bottom of your second fraction. And then you just fill in the appropriate numbers for that particular conversion factor. So in this case, it's 1 mole. 1 mole is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms. Then you do the math. You multiply everything on the top and divide by whatever the multiplication of everything on the bottom is. All right, so it's 9.03 times 1 divided by 1 times 6.023. And you should get 1.5 moles. All right, so give it a try on your homework sheet.